Madam President, Commissioners, good morning. It's 11:30.
All right, thank you very much, Director Wong. Welcome everyone to our pre-commission meeting. We'll go ahead and start with any general housekeeping items, questions, comments.
Madam President?
The agenda?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Later, I guess.
Some concerns about the agenda.
Yeah, well, just a few questions on the consent agenda, if I may. Item number 3, the Black Cat Road and Franklin Road parcel purchase. In reading the staff report, it didn't show exactly where the parcel is, and it also indicated that the parcel was related to construction that was scheduled for 2036 to 2040 timeframe. And I just wanted to ask, because of course I know that Franklin Road from Black Cat to McDermott is being widened in connection with the Highway 16 project. Is that not correct?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, this is not part of that.
Okay, and
this is a preservation of right-of-way, which we do with a majority of, if not all of our projects, when we have the opportunity to purchase property at a reasonable price.
Right.
We've been working on this for some time right now, and it's completely different from that.
So this parcel is north or south of Franklin Road enough that it's not brought into that
That's
project?
correct.
Okay, all right, that's the reason. Reading, of course, it didn't show the location, that's why the question. Okay, item number 4, the tree pruning piggyback services agreement. Is this for county-wide tree pruning services for the entire
No, this will
district?
just be for maintenance zone 4 in preparation of actions we're going to be taking soon, and then of course in the spring time frame. We want to get the trees out of the way. That's the wrong thing to say. We want to make sure that all of the inconveniences or the impacts that tree limbs and those have on operations is out of the way prior for us starting those process of chip sealing, road crack sealing, those sort of things. Mailers have already gone out to our folks, or to the people that live in this area, and we'll be following up with that. But that is a pre-maintenance issue.
So as far as zone 4, where approximately is that?
Where's my means? Southeast Boise.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Then just one more on item number 5. It gives the amounts that basically we've got these grant funding that we're using up to purchase new commuter ride vans. There was no indication of how many vans we were going to purchase with that. 5, okay. All right, that is all my questions, thank you.
I was waiting for this costs more or less than the next time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments about the agenda? Nope. All right, Director Wong.
Thank you. Commissioners, a couple items. First off, Commissioners May and Commissioner Goldthorpe, thank you again for joining us early yesterday morning for the annual ODARC 30 annual ACHD employee breakfast. It was a huge success. And for all of you, in the past, we would have our health fair right after the employee breakfast. We've separated that by a long time, so cholesterol and everything else. But it was a huge success, and everybody was very appreciative and such going forward. What I'd like to do first, before we get into another issue, is review with you, as we do about this time every month, the initiatives that we've taken in September and what the initiatives were going to be in October. As a reminder, we started this program as a small step to look at things that we could do quickly from a month-to-month perspective to continue to enhance the effectiveness of the district and such. And they don't have to be big. They could be little things that we address, because little things grow into big things and grow into bigger things as they move forward. Anyway, for maintenance, for September, our initiative was updating and revamping our winter operations maps. You have a briefing on that here later on today, with a focus on getting all routes integrated into the GIS system, where many were still being hand highlighted. By integrating the route maps into GIS, it will aid to foster and faster and more effectively give updates through the years, more consistent with the maps that we've seen at Adams, Ustick, and Cloverdale. This is in progress. We're almost done with that. And again, you'll see that presentation later today. For October, Fleet will be refining the process for vehicle assignments in our computer systems, and to not only identify the right vehicle to the right department and or the person, but also to properly track and trend vehicle maintenance and repair needs. The long-term goal is to incorporate a predictive maintenance repair approach. As some of you know, we have done that in the past. It was on a quarterly basis. We really want to define this and refine it a lot more. So that is what they're going to be working on for October. And just to give you an update, as you know, earlier in August, we briefed you that we had an initiative to auto-detect potential potholes via artificial intelligence. The initial tests that we're doing are proving positive, and we will be updating the commission here in the next couple months as to the viability. But so far, as we say, it's looking pretty good as we move forward. For plans and projects, the September initiative was to execute the consultant selection process for new FY23 designs based on revised project management guidelines. The initiative was a huge success and included the selection of all consulting firms for designs that will begin in 2023. Time-saving measures from the revised PGM reduced the need for additional RFQs, and ACHD was able to rely on its robust and comprehensive on-call process, again, saving time, saving dollars. The October initiative is to support Walk to School Day and the Ride Bright program. ACHD supports these critical safety promoting events by distributing bike lights, backpack lights, and promoting safety among children who walk and bike to school. Throughout October, the P&P staff will be distributing these safety materials, lights, and maps to schools across Ada County, and the P&P staff will also be supporting the Ride Bright program sponsored by our ACHD Commuter Ride. This program, this event, celebrates bike safety and distributes bike lights at various locations across Ada County. These events, along with ACHD's very successful Let's Get There Safely campaign, continues to promote safety for all users, especially kids getting to and from school. For development and technical services, September's initiative was to produce proposed changes to the ACHD roundabout policy. These were submitted to legal earlier this month for consideration as part of the omnibus update to the policy manual that you'll be seeing here in the near future. For October, we would like to use an initiative is to explore and implement structural and process changes to enhance ACHD's permitting process. Again, as you know, we've really refined that in the last couple of months. I think we can go a little further, and so we'll keep you posted on that. For communications, in September, communications was leading and will be leading Let's Get There Safely campaign, which you've seen, targeting teenage drivers. As noted in your agenda today, a key part of this initiative has been on our TikTok videos and proposed roundabout virtual training concept that's in your on your consent agenda today. For October, the ACHD communications team will be transitioning to a new public engagement tool called Bang the Table. It's not what we do. Implementation of this tool is part of our larger rebranding effort that will be complete with a new website. The communications team is excited to activate Bang the Table, which will provide a user-friendly experience for customers looking to learn more or provide input on projects and programs. The tool will help the public find information on everything from capital projects and studies to the integrated 5E work plan, environmental programs, community contests, and everything in between. Bang the Table will offer new tools that will help keep the Ada County Highway District residents informed, updated, and most importantly, engaged. It features surveys, quick polls, mapping, forums, and much, much more. Behind the scenes, our communications team is looking forward to a streamlined reporting system that will help us track input from customers, break down data, and be more effective and efficient in the ever-growing process of public involvement at ACHD. You will receive a demonstration on this in the very, very near future. And as I'd like to say again, we absolutely have the best communications team we've ever had in my tenure here at the district under Shandy's leadership. For HR, in September, and she has explained what Bang the Table and TikTok and that, and so it's all good stuff. For September, HR was exploring ending the 2 gym membership opportunities by providing the equivalent stipend to team members to select a gym of their choice. This is proceeding nicely and is now in for legal review. For October, we will create a dedicated hero wall that celebrates our people as they continue to enhance ACHD's culture based on innovation and excellence. For the treasurer, our October initiative is to pass the audit when it's all said and done. So those are the initiatives. That's where we're at. We'll keep you posted in the next go around as to how we did in October moving forward. Now moving to Warm Springs. As you know, Commissioner.
Question, Madam President, on the.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Director. While we're out doing the walk to school day and the bright lights, I think that's great. That's fantastic. We're going to collect data on those areas that are particularly dangerous. As to there's going to be some evaluation of which ones we really needed to be there. And if we could collect that data, I think that would be very important to then share with the city, because the city is responsible, the cities, whichever one it is in, is responsible for lighting and safety. So we can use that data, both in terms of analyzing, are there things we can do on that street to make it safer, and what the city can do to add lighting to that street. So I think that if we're going to be there anyway, we're going to collect data, let's use that data to then make something a little more permanent.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, great initiative, great idea. Yes, we will. And of course, we'll come back to all of you and share those insights with all of you.
Very good.
So moving to Warm Springs. Commissioners, as you know, I met for over an hour with the two gentlemen who spoke with the commission last week regarding Warm Springs. And that was on Friday after your Wednesday meeting. In all, a very productive meeting. I did share a few highlights and recommendations to them as follows. And that was the last 4 speed studies conducted within the last 2.5 years have shown that speeding on above the 30-mile-per-hour limit was probably not the real target, because 85 percentile during the morning, noon, and evening actually showed the average speed was 32 miles per hour. And I did commit to doing 5 more of these in morning, noon, in the evening, and those results basically came back as the same results. I did commit to posting our mobile speed trailer in Warm Springs next Friday through Tuesday. I did commit to putting up permanent solar speed signs on the Warm Springs to complement the 2 that are already there in existence, and the gentlemen will be working as representatives of the neighborhoods to best determine the locations and share that with us going forward. They probably know the areas better than
Sure.
a lot of us do.
Very good.
I did commit to a very robust Warm Springs concept study that you were briefed on, and this will begin in fall. We will have the consultants on contract soonest, with the first public outreach in late October, early November. I have asked, and both have agreed, to be our key points of contact for the neighborhood association. I was very grateful for that. Focus, of course, on the concept will be on bike, ped, ADA, and speed mitigation concepts to potentially include temporary aspects to allow for real-time feedback. I did commit that ACHD would be fully engaged with the neighborhood, and we will be providing them feedback, insights, and solutions-focused opportunities throughout the concept phase. I did not commit to immediately, and I want to know that word, immediately, lower the speed limit to 25 miles an hour on speeding concerns, but would fully address this as the facts came forward. Commissioners, as I shared with you earlier, I spent time last weekend on Warm Springs to follow up on my discussions with the gentleman. As noted above, we did have a robust discussion, and I had committed to the items that I listed. After my visit, I took a different focus from speeding, as I believe that was the issue, that was in front of the neighborhoods for ACHD to address on Warm Springs, but not speeding on Warm Springs per se, but how do we continue to mitigate risk for all users with a consistently changing environment that ACHD and Warm Springs residents face. As I shared earlier, for Warm Springs specifically, there is a standing consistency. And that consistency is that Warm Springs infrastructure has been consistent for many years, regardless of the use transformations regarding development pressures, increased numbers of people, bikes, scooters, one-wheel electric power skateboards, cars, etc., and the throughput we are witnessing today. And however, the risk to all users, and especially pedestrians, has changed and increased due again to the transportation of the impacts of stress and usage in Warm Springs, as they're now seeing development, BSU traffic for sports, increased vehicle, bike volumes, commercial schools, etc. That's what I saw. As such, regardless of the current posted speed limit, risk to individuals involving pedestrians, bikes, and cars may continue to rise as enhanced by the following national statistics. And I shared this earlier, but I'd like to share it again. From 2010 to 2020, there has been a 54% increase in pedestrian deaths resulting from vehicle to pedestrian accidents. From 2020 to 21, there has been a 12% increase in pedestrian deaths resulting from vehicle to pedestrian accidents. As we have seen in the past, when speed limits are lowered as standalone actions, two things generally happen. The public that does not specifically reside on the road in question are not happy, and they let us know it. And second, there generally is no reduction in the speed. Examples: Harrison, Eagle City, Eagle Highway, 10 Mile, my subdivision. Moreover, enforcement is spotty at best, and as a general rule, most local police departments are not only overwhelmed with more pressing issues on traffic, but the general consensus is that 5 to 7 miles per hour speed limit is okay. That being said, AAA has shared the following insights, which I again reviewed over the weekend, regarding the risk of death to pedestrians that I think bear considerable consideration regarding Warm Springs. So, Commissioners, the risk of death to pedestrians is 10% at 23 miles per hour on a vehicle strike. The risk of death more than doubles to 25% at 32 miles per hour, and quadruples as it goes to 50% at 42 miles per hour. I've also looked at vehicle travel timing, and at 30 miles per hour, it took me 2 minutes to travel a mile. And this was in perfect conditions on Sunday. At 25 miles an hour, it took me 2 minutes and 36 seconds. So if, and this is a big if, a consideration to lower the speed limit on Warm Springs from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour theoretically mitigates the risk of pedestrian deaths by over 100% by only adding 36 seconds to a Warm Springs vehicle, and this includes bikes and scooters, because they were going that fast too, to commute. It seems to be wise to invest in risk mitigation. Commissioners, I'm under no misconception that singularly lowering the speed limits anywhere without some changes in the environment of the infrastructure coupled with the appropriate enforcement actions will make an impact to vehicle, bike, scooter, etc. speeds, as history has shown this not to be true. However, I also believe that this is a tool that we have to at least start the discussions and actions to mitigate risk to all users, and as such, minus any concerns you may have, and I haven't heard any, we will continue with the series of mitigation items on Warm Springs that I shared, but I will also lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour on Friday. I have also reached out to Boise staff, and I have been notified that Mayor McLean eagerly supports this. So finally, as a reminder, your EXIF team will be at Mountain Home Air Force Base on Friday from about 8 a.m. to returning back to about 1 p.m. So with that, Commissioners, that's my Director's administrative report. I stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Wong. And I just want to commend you and staff for the quick turnaround and action on the Warm Springs matter. Everybody got out there in quick order, and now we've got some resolution moving forward with a path forward for increasing safety on that corridor.
Madam President, thank you. And I'd also like to thank the gentleman right back over there who spent time last Friday with me.
Quick turnaround.
And suffered through a long discussion, but at the end of the day, again, unless you have concerns, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Great things come when everybody works together. So again, we thank you for coming in and bringing it to our, and for the staff getting right out there. So good outcome. Thank you.
Madam President,
Commissioner Hanson.
I also want to extend my thanks. I appreciate this. Of course, this has, since it ceased to be a state highway, you're correct. The geometry of Warm Springs hasn't changed, but it's a neighborhood. And the expectations have been deferred for so many years. And I really appreciate that we're moving forward and we're coming up with a scope and design, which we approved last year. And that scope and design will be based upon 25 miles an hour on that segment. So it's really important because it's about not about the throughput of traffic, it's about living in that neighborhood, which is where my kids went to school the whole time, to Adams Elementary School. They went to Adams for their 6 years there.
They had schools back then?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
way back. So I really appreciate that. And of course, the other parts of Warm Springs were also, has other issues involved. It's not a state highway anymore, even though we inherited the geometry of a state highway. And so there's a lot still to be done, and I appreciate moving forward. And if there's some policy changes that need to take place that keep getting into the way of addressing these when things like a state highway is turned over to a local street, and we should address those through the policy changes. Thanks.
Madam President? Thank you. Commissioner Bigler.
Director Wong, was there anything taken or done with the lady that came after that presentation? Did anyone have any conversations with her about her being on the sidewalk and that letter that she needed?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, we are in the process of crafting a letter that should satisfy her and such. And it'll basically come in the format that the Ada County Highway District has absolutely no concerns and supports an individual's First Amendment right to stand on the sidewalk.
Thank you.
She's stayed around for quite a while.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none.
Commissioners, you have about 10 minutes. It's so quiet so quickly, doesn't it?
Yes.
Madam President, Commissioners, good afternoon. It's now 12 o'clock.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. If you would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Our first item to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move
Any?
to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
It passes. All right, first item on our regular agenda, a special item today, the ACHD Charity Golf Tournament check presentation. Welcome, Mr. Price.
Well, thank you, Madam President and Commissioners. This is a special day. We started this journey a few months ago, and as you know, this was our 20th year for the ACHD Annual Golf Charity. The golf charity this year was the First Tee of Idaho, right over there, and it was a success. We raised approximately $230,000 in a one-day little golf scramble out of Spurwing. Commissioner May, thank you for attending and harassing the golfers, trying to get them to
did my part.
contribute money to the event. The one thing I'd like to say is that this is there's a few members of ACHD employees that are every year have been consistent in organizing this tournament. It isn't a one-man show. It's most certainly a team effort. It takes a fair amount of work to put it together and a lot of coordination. And Stacy Spencer is really a heavy lifter in that effort. So is Dean and Regina Cunningham, and we even have Joe. He's new to it. Christy, wow, you wouldn't believe what she does, and more importantly, she puts up with me, which is, I'm always a little behind on this stuff. But in any event, I'm always continue to be amazed by how benevolent this community is for charities. And as you know, one year we will do veterans, the next year we'll do kiddos, and it is all in an effort to help those people in our community that are less fortunate, and to help them and with a kind of a one-time shot. And it makes me very proud to be with the golf team, to be part of that. It's most certainly very memorable to see them accept the check and the surprise on their look. But we have a lot of supporters that aren't just associated with the Highway District. We have a lot of other people that participate that really aren't friends of the Highway District. I shouldn't say they're not friends, they're just not involved in that. And that's a significant contribution to these groups. This year we did the kiddos. This is one of my favorite charities, the First Tee of Idaho. The reason for that, I got involved in the late 90s to help them get their 501c3 to bring it here. The First Tee program is a nationwide program. Each state typically has their own charter. And the purpose of the First Tee is really to use golf as a medium to teach life skills and values to kids that are less fortunate. Teach them about honesty, integrity, sportsmanship, making the right call, not cheating, and working hard. And I'm sure that Nick can, allude on that. But in any event, we did a tournament. This isn't the first time we've done the first tee. We did it in 2015. And at that time, which was a record then, we raised $125,000. So in a mere 7 years, we've,
Almost double.
and the director keeps pushing more and more. He's, and in all honesty, the director's been an enormous supporter of this event. He works very hard on his own. He shows up on game day. Even this year with Sherry Canals, they took second place in their flight. So one reason we're here today is to thank the commission for allowing the golf team to continue to do this under the ACHD title. And it also makes me proud as we all view ourselves as public servants. We're here to help the public through ACHD transportation issues. And it's something that I think every employee comes here every day. But it's also part of that public service is to be able to have that sense of giving back to our community. And this is our annual event where we do that. And so it was a lot of fun this year. Mark Johnson did the auction. He was the auctioneer for the Boise State golf teams, the men's and women's golf teams. And we auctioned off both teams. A golfer and a woman golfer would be auctioned off together. It was a lot of fun. It was really humorous. And we raised $26,000 as part of that. So it isn't just what ACHD did, it's also in partnership with the Boise State men and women's golf team. They also helped raise money by making their players available and playing throughout the day to help raise money for this charity. Half of the money that we raised, the $26,000, half goes to the charity and half goes to the men and women's golf team. And so with that, Nick, Katie, you want to come up and we'll do a big check and then we'll get to Dave. We'll get you up here in a minute.
Commissioners, would you like to join them on the floor, please?
You pick it up. Get up there. Smile.
Sandy, where do you want to sit?
If you can come right here, and I can sit in the background. You can stand in front of this.
Want us on the, ready? Get
Um,
us up on the ledge.
Yeah.
Probably because Nick's
I
so
don't know how
tall.
many of you.
Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. You got a pink tie.
Okay. I'm gonna have you guys move back behind.
Okay.
Over there. She's got the eye. She's got the eye.
There we go. Everybody in.
Right. Everybody say first tee.
First tee.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another picture because that one won't fit into the teller at the bank. So, Nick, here's the real money.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
Katie, thank you for your help.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. All right, Dave, you want to come up? And here is Boise State's cut for your efforts. I really appreciate the Boise State men and women's golf team helping raise money for First Tee this year. And hopefully we can keep doing this. So
It was great, and I can speak for both teams that both teams had a great time with everybody involved.
Yeah.
So thank you for having us out.
yeah, really nice young men and women.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed it.
Oh.
Thanks.
Steve.
Thank you very much. much, and congratulations to everybody. It was a very nice event. All right, that takes us down to our last item, public communications. Is there anybody here that would like to address the commission? Mr. Mooney, haven't seen you for a while. Nice to see you. Welcome. State
Madam
your name and
President.
address.
Madam President, Commissioners, is this on? On? 7153 East Highland Valley Road, John Mooney. I'm here on behalf of the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association. I'd like to make some comments, kind of piggybacking on Director Wong's comments and the great work that the East End did regarding Warm Springs and the core. It's also your work session topic, number 3 this afternoon, pre-adoption presentation by the staff of the draft Barber Valley Transportation Plan, which will be before you again for a public hearing and adoption later this month. Thank you for Edison for his prompt responses and when we had questions, and for reopening the public comment period in July to attempt to gain more public input. We look forward to the public comment period over the next few weeks, and we'll have a detailed feedback on the proposed plan that we will submit for your consideration. We are enthused about the opportunity to begin to use this plan to advocate for future projects in the integrated 5-year work plan. The graphic I've got, hopefully we can get it up here, is highlights from top to bottom what our neighborhood kind of considers the big picture of what's happened over the time frame here on Warm Springs. Director Wong talked just a few minutes ago about Warm Springs along the Warm Springs Historic District, and I want to disconnect that discussion with our neighborhood's issues. The graphic will highlight here when we get it up, kind of the north to south issues, and I'll just let you read through that, and I won't make any more comments on it. I've got a handout if you'd like it. It starts with a big picture comment on the left side of the graphic, and it highlights the preliminary efforts with the big picture comment and the efforts we've made with the City of Boise and ACHD to change the master street map to accommodate design changes to Warm Springs in the Barber Valley, not in the East End. As you know, Warm Springs was a high-speed state highway and now serves as a neighborhood street in the Barber Valley. The master street map classifies it as an arterial. We agree with the City of Boise's request in March to reclassify it as a collector between Eckert Road and Highway 21, as the graphic shows. We don't care what you call it. We will continue to advocate for design changes that slow motor vehicle traffic to accommodate safer bicycle, pedestrian, and wildlife crossings. This evolution of Warm Springs between Eckert and Highway 21 is described in the draft plan Edison will present as a future high-priority project to, quote, enhance bicycle and pedestrian facilities with roadway improvements. However, we'd like to emphasize that the most popular public comment regarding roadway improvements in the Barber Valley was to, quote, overhaul, reimagine Warm Springs between Eckert and Highway 21. We recognize this 2.4-mile stretch of Warm Springs could be reimagined, but will face innumerable other competing priority projects across the county to make it into your 5-year work plan. That is why we have taken every available city annexation along this segment of Warm Springs to attempt to get development to incrementally change the nature of the road and the streetscape. We have tried very hard to convince the city and ACHD planners that small design changes paid for by development will begin to change the roadway until a long-term project can be programmed in the work plan. The problem is the roadway design, as you know. When motor vehicles exit Highway 21, they travel north on Warm Springs through an area that will be developed in the future as a city park. The ACHD right-of-way in this segment of Warm Springs is 150 feet wide. The motor vehicle sightlines are immense, and there is no vertical development or roadway design elements that serve to slow vehicle speeds. We can't change that now, but we are patient, and we hope to see the future park development incorporate major roadway design features that will serve to reimagine Warm Springs. What we have attempted to do with no success over the past few years is work with applicants as they propose residential development on this section of Warm Springs. Most recently, we worked very closely with a developer of 40-unit townhome development just north of the future city park and convinced him that his application would be more attractive to future residents if access was direct onto Warm Springs, as well as through the adjacent subdivision. We supported the density of the development and encouraged streetscape changes that brought vertical features closer to the motor vehicle travel lanes to begin to template the overhaul and reimagining of Warm Springs, as described in the transportation plan you'll review here shortly. That City of Boise application is referred to as Atwell Place and was supported by your staff's ACHD project report. Unfortunately, when the developer approached your staff for a pre-app meeting in February, he encountered clear staff guidance. Quote, ACHD has never allowed traffic calming on an arterial roadway and would not consider traffic calming on Warm Springs, unquote. The applicant recognized that continuing down the path that we had advocated would be a time and resource expenditure that did not make good business sense, despite the fact that his original plan clearly sought to honor the city's vision of the corridor, which is right here out of the Boise comp plan. So the applicant then applied to the city with a plan that did not take Warm Springs access directly, and the community lost another opportunity to incrementally change the nature of Warm Springs streetscape paid for by development. We do not fault your staff for citing ACHD policy. We do question when your staff and the associated city staff recognizes that closer coordination with the land use agency is appropriate and possible. ACHD policy waivers or changes can be elevated to you, the policy makers. We regret the City of Boise's vision lost again to ACHD policy in this latest attempt to overhaul and reimagine Warm Springs. Thank you for considering our remarks.
Got handouts that or
Slides, those two slides if you'd like them.
all right, thank you very much. We
Thank you, John.
appreciate it. Nice to see you, John. Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I don't know if it's appropriate now or a little later and we're talking about this some more. Do you happen to know when the next time is that we'll be able to consider the status of Warm Springs in that area, arterial versus whatever?
November 9th.
Thank you.
I knew it was coming. All right, thank you. All right, seeing no other individuals to address the commission, we will go ahead and adjourn and go into our work session. Our first item for our commission agenda is the 23 winter maintenance presentation. Welcome, Mr. Carnegie.
Brings all these Canadian slides.
Afternoon,
Welcome.
President May and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Lloyd Carnegie, Maintenance Manager here at ACHD. And with me, we have our 3 superintendents for our winter operations. New to the role is our Bobby Amadon for the Adams Division. We have Heather Friddle, that is part of our USTIC operations, and Rich Shaw, which is our Cloverdale Superintendent.
All right, welcome to all 3 of you. Always good to see you.
And we always like to start the presentation with a great comic about winter and the unique challenges that we have during winter operations.
Very good.
So in today's presentation, we're going to go over our mission, our inventory and resources that we have available to us to do our winter operations, historical costs, treatment priorities, what we do to get ready for winter operations. It doesn't just start come November 1st. We have a lot of preparations that we go through. We're going to go through the awesome communication strategy that our communications team has put together for us, and then our crystal ball predictions for this year's winter. So our mission is to facilitate the safest possible travel conditions for the general public, utilizing all our available resources. Our infrastructure currently, we have 5,306 lane miles now for us to maintain. That's an increase of 60 lane miles from last year. And all of these were in our residential category, but that's still a lot of lane miles that our guys are to maintain during any winter event. In those lane miles, we have over 4,400 cul-de-sacs, which are unique when it comes to winter maintenance, but they're there and we're ready to tackle them as we need to.
You're up to the challenge.
We're up to the challenge. So to maintain those lane miles, we have 63 total units, with 44 of them having plows. We have 137 team members currently, and we are always looking to hire more individuals, so that number should increase as we get those hired on. Here it shows the units that we have strictly at Adams for the dump trucks and the plows, the pickup sanders, anti-icing units. So these are the ones that do the direct magnesium chloride applications, and then our graders and loaders. And then we also have our Cloverdale and Ustick. With Ustick now getting on board, we do have some individuals that are assigned to Ustick, but they will be combining with Cloverdale to address the winter operations in the Cloverdale district. And so they have the dump trucks and plows and anti-icing units as well. We have a variety of contractors that we're working with to get on call and have service agreements as we have in the past. So this is when we have significant snowfall and we have all our equipment out there addressing snow, and we need additional units to come help us. We have contractors already on call that we can call them up, already have the pricing in place, and we can get them out there to help us out. We also are looking at reserves from other departments. We do have fine folks that used to be in maintenance department that have been promoted and gone to other departments, but they do have that winter background that should we need help because of vacancies that we still need to fill, we can reach out. We're already working with those departments to figure out how that procedure is going to work, and that they'll be able to come and help us maintain these winter roads when the time comes. So our storage capacities, magnesium chloride, this is our main tool when it comes to anti-icing before a storm. We have the capacity to store 290,000 gallons. That's at Adams, Cloverdale, and our main stock site at White Pit. We're able to store 7,500 tons of sand salt mix and 7,500 tons of pure rock salt. Again, these are all different tools that we can use at different times depending on road conditions, pavement temperatures, and such like. This is a quick overview map of our winter operations. The green area is our Adams division, and these are the routes that their team will be maintaining. And then the lower southern purple areas are our Cloverdale Ustick routes. There are 16 routes in Adams and 17 routes in Cloverdale. Again, we have 2 operators assigned per route. There's a crew 1 and a crew 2, so that if we go on 24-hour operations, we have operators that are distinct to that route. They know those routes like the back of their hand, and they stay in those routes throughout the entire winter season. Here's an example of our route maps that our operators have. Again, it helps identify our priority ones, our arterials collectors, roads over 6%, plus our schools, our bridge decks. It really aids them in making sure that they are treating it in the most efficient manner. These are the routes, as the director mentioned earlier, that we are currently working through and updating it through GIS to make the process smoother for future years as we update and new roads get developed and put in. These maps can be updated faster.
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Thank you. Lloyd, well, last year a constituent reached out to me. They live in between, I believe, off of Hill Road on that, on a steep slope. And the one of our operators, or a couple, I think, missed them over the course of our big snow event that we had this last winter. How are we doing? And I, chalked it up to, and they were really gracious. They were, unfortunately, some of them were ER doctors and couldn't get into the hospital, right, to serve and work on those patients. But how are we doing broadly from like a staffing perspective? Because I chalked it up to maybe it's a new person who didn't know the route as well, all of that good stuff. So I'm just kind of, and you might be alluding to this, getting to it at the end, but I'm just kind of curious, where are we at with staffing and making sure that those important steep driveways and roads aren't missed?
Sure, President May, Commissioner Pickering. We do have several new staff. There's a slide I'll be going into regarding how many new GEOs that we have. Okay. We do have a training program that we put them through. It's actually starting next week. They are mirrored with veteran operators in those routes. We let them have time now while there is no snow to drive through those routes to get familiar with them. There is the occasion that a spot might be missed. And we're really happy if those residents would call us, let us know, and we'll have an operator out there to get that cleared. And then it's a good reminder and for that operator that, oh yes, this is the location that I need to do. But yes.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Our best.
Lloyd, aren't some of those steeper grades, they're like one of our priorities, like for instance, Quail Ridge, I think when we have a significant snowfall and ice.
President May, any road over 6% is part of our priority ones.
Very good.
Lloyd, while you're on the topic, thank you, President May. So it'd be interesting to see what additional lane miles of grades over 6% have been added to ours, because they do go to the front of the line in terms of the preference. And we raised this issue with a huge new development that is going into the foothills over the next few years. So we could do some analysis of what the obligations are on how many additional lane miles over 6% that we'd be obligated to plow. And I know, we can't use the developer's impact fees to pay for the plows to plow those streets. So we have to do it out of our other funds.
President, Commissioner Hanson, that's a good point, and that's one of the reasons why we are going to the new mapping system through GIS, because then we would be able to pull that kind of information. Whereas currently doing it manually, it's more difficult to pull that.
Thanks, Lloyd.
So here's our historical costs. As you could tell, the item in the middle was our Snowmageddon. So it was definitely a significant snowfall that year.
It does stand out.
It does really stand out. Last year, our costs were a little higher than normal, but that's also, we had that significant snowfall at the end of December. It was really setting the pace. We thought we were going to have a really good winter, but it kind of tricked us, and then it just ended up being cold for the rest of the year. But we did have some more than average costs than in the past.
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Lloyd, can you explain what the burden identifier means?
President May, Commissioner Pickering, that is the burden, the overhead, the admin costs that go into this.
Perfect, thank you.
So here are our available resources for our on-call supervisors and our staff during any winter event that we can tap into and help us make the correct decisions. We have our road weather information systems. They're called RWES stations. There's a picture of it here on the slide, and it provides us our ambient temperature, our road surface temperature, dew points, relative humidity. It also has a picture of the intersection so they can visually see what that road looks like. We have 7 of them throughout the county. ITD also has a bunch on their corridors that we can have access to and look up to if needed. And it really helps our on-call supervisors to know what are those road surface temperatures doing and how is that storm going through the county, because we could have a storm that's in Kuna but not happening in Eagle, and so seeing how that moves is really helpful. We have weekly conversations with our National Weather Service. They provide presentations of kind of like a 3 to 4 day window of what the weather might be doing, and so it's a good way to just get that general information on a week by week basis. Our Ada County Sheriff's Office is very helpful. They do receive phone calls that really have to do with us, and so they relay that information to us, plus their officers are constantly driving these roads, and so anytime they see a slick spot or something of note, they will call their dispatcher and then relay that right to our on-call supervisors so we can dispatch our units as required. So we have a really great partnership with them regarding our winter operations. Should the need arise, we also have our communications with Ada County Emergency Management Center. So if another Snowmageddon comes about, we already have those connections that we can have other available resources that we don't have now at our disposal. Our Traffic Management Center is a huge help. We have all our traffic cameras throughout the Ada County that if our on-call supervisors at one glance can look and see what the road conditions are in throughout any part of Ada County, and it is very helpful. I've used it several times myself, and at times we can also give them a call and they can tell us what the traffic's looking like out there. So they're a great resource for our on-call supervisors. We have 2 on-call supervisors on at all times, and they communicate with one with another. Should a winter event be happening in one district over another, we do have resources that we can move those and help and aid each district. Or if they find that one material is working better in this storm, they can relay that to the other on-call supervisor and work together on a storm. We also have open communications. Our superintendents, myself, deputy directors, we're all available for to be called and help work through a decision-making process. And so we're here, one team, one fight. New this year is our automated vehicle location system. These are the GPS systems on our unit. So I want to thank the commission again for allowing us to purchase those and put them on. This is going to be very helpful, not only just knowing where our units are, but it's also going to tell us if the spreader's on and off, if it's plow up or down, road surface temperatures right at that vehicle. It's going to give us a lot more information that's going to be very, very helpful this year. So
A lot of good data there.
I'm looking forward to it. And then we have our Opticon units. Our Opticon units is when we put plow teams together, when we have a significant snowfall. This allows them to be able to continue on in a continuous operation that's more effective and safer as they go through major intersections. That allows those lights to turn green in advance so they can continue on going through and keep it safe for everybody around them. So our priority one is our main priority that we do in any winter event. It's our arterials, collectors, major intersections, overpasses, bridges, school crossings, and these are the streets that are over 6%. So every time a snow event happens, this is what we're going out and doing every single time. We're checking them, making sure that they're safe and facilitating the safest travel conditions as possible. Priority twos, these are for our school bus routes. And these have been identified by the public school districts and also helping our vulnerable populations. So should we have a significant snowfall and we need to get that route open so that people can get safely to schools and those vulnerable populations to where they need to go, the superintendents will make that call to implement the priority two. Priority threes is our residential streets. Again, if we have a significant snowfall, our deputy director will make the decision if we need to get into the residential streets to allow people to be able to move and get where they need to go. As I mentioned earlier, winter operations doesn't just start when the snow flies. We were already preparing in August when we're still having 100-degree weather. We're thinking snow, and we're looking at our route maps. We're looking at our winter plan and putting items together. Our superintendents have been working very tirelessly looking at the routes and putting in the crew assignments. Again, with the vacancies that we have, it's been very challenging, but they've done an amazing job of trying to fill all those spots so we have every route filled. They've been working on our route maps with the GIS team. We're very close to having those done. So they've also, on October 4th, we finalized the notices with communications, which will be in a future slide, of how we want to make sure we're communicating to the public, of what we're doing and how we're doing it. By Friday, we'll have all our winter equipment looked through and checked, and any deficiencies noted to have repairs done prior to our winter operations starting November 1st. And then our hopes, depending on how we finish up our maps, we're hoping to have our operations packet completed by this Friday as well. So training, Commissioner Pickering kind of goes to what you were questioning is next week on Tuesday, we start with our supervisor training. We have 8 new supervisors this year. So we're really gonna sit down with them, talk over our policies and procedures, decision-making, kind of go through different events and what could possibly be a decision. Again, we're always one phone call away to help them all out. We're also going to be training them on the new AVL system so they know how to use that and access it, and that will aid them in making sure the appropriate decisions in the field are happening. So it's a morning-long training, and should they have more questions, we give them all the whole day to work through whatever training they need. Then the following day, on Wednesday and Thursday, we have our operator training. We have 12 currently new GEOs on board with us this year. We're going to be going through the equipment, putting sanders on, sanders off, loading mag, how to put the plows on, the whole gamut of the unit, and making sure that they feel comfortable in operating that piece of equipment. Plus, they'll be going out with their route partners and driving their routes, getting familiar, looking at the maps, seeing what changes have been on there, making sure they fully know that route in the daylight so that when it comes to nighttime, they have a good familiarization with that route. So November 1st is when winter operations begin. Again, Mother Nature will actually really dictate when we do start. But our new operators will have a co-pilot. So this is when they get called in for a winter event. They won't be coming in alone. They will have a co-pilot with them until they feel comfortable operating the equipment and doing their route on their own. And they will meet with the superintendent to have that signed off, and the superintendent themselves will sign them off, making sure that they are competent and feel comfortable operating that equipment and in that route. We continually reinforce expectations for consistency and for safe operations. So outreach, we send our winter operations plan to the sheriff's office plus all the police departments throughout the different cities. Again, if they know what we're doing and how we're going to do it, the better they can help us and also communicate to any of the public that contacts them. We also have the emergency management center that we provide them with our plan, and then our fire departments as well. Our Ada County Dispatch Supervisors overview, this was held at the Sheriff's Office. We had that yesterday. We give them a very similar presentation as what we're giving you today. Again, it's just informing them of all the different steps and stuff that we do for winter operations and how they can help us and we can help them. And so getting that partnership is really crucial, and we benefit greatly from it. And then we also send our operations plan to the schools, the Boise School District, West Ada, CUNA. Again, this is help educate not only the schools, but the parents of the children that will attend those schools, so they know what is our priorities and what to look for when you're driving and getting to the schools and whatnot. Communication strategy. So this is similar to the amazing strategy that they had for our chip seal operations. We're communicating early and we're communicating often. They have several press releases that they're already working on and having ready to pump out to the public, so that it's information of, how to HOAs, how to get contractors on board to have a free permit to clear snow if they so required. What's their responsibilities for sidewalks? What's when they're driving, how to have safe driving, how to clear your windshield, that kind of stuff. So they're putting that out early and getting people in the mindset of winter before that first snowfall happens. They're going to be holding a communications connection meeting with various different media outlets, community people, and it's just a forum, I believe, for open communication. They get more information from the source. Social media outreach, they're going to be ride-along invitations, and we invite all our commissioners, if you'd like to go on a ride-along with some of our operators, we'd love to have you. It's early in the morning, but it's very educational. They have flyers that they're putting together, the school bus route coordination. We really appreciate their help, as they have connections with the school districts that have been very helpful in getting those routes that we need to make sure that our school bus routes are correct. They're going to do what's called a tweet-along. I've never heard that term, but it's something new where they'll be going along with one of our operators and tweeting the process as they go along. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And then, of course, our
Banging that table.
Yeah, they're banging that table. And then our media relations, they go. This is where we break open the crystal ball. The Old Farmer's Almanac, is predicting a wet and mild winter for us. So we should see, they're saying precipitation, but the temperatures should be fairly mild, not too much for freezing. Then when you go to the new Farmer's Almanac, they are calling for frigid temperatures. So it's kind of a different gamut. We'll see what comes. And then you go to the National Weather Service, and they're predicting a probability of above average, below average, maybe even average season. It's right there.
They're not sure.
Odds of average, above average, below average precipitation. So that's, I guess they covered it all.
Yeah.
But they are saying that we have a 60% chance of La Nina to continuing through December to February. Our crews are ready to battle whatever Mother Nature decides to bring it this year, just like we've done in previous years. Contact information for our citizens. Adams and Cloverdale primary numbers are there. It would be great if citizens called those directly, as they can have direct contact with the on-call supervisors and get a fast response. They can still call our main line. It's just there's an added, the main line will then have to transfer it to Adams or Cloverdale, and there's just that added. So if they could, Adams and Cloverdale primary numbers are the best numbers for them to call. We do have after hours non-emergency dispatch. This is the sheriff's office. They can call that number after hours, and they do have our on-call supervisors' cell phones on direct dial that at any time they can pass that information on as required. And then we have our TELUS system and also the ACHD website that has more further information should they want to know more about our winter operations. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. You can tell that everybody's ready to go, so we appreciate that. Questions, Commissioner Goldthorpe?
This is kind of an oddball question, but people expect that from me sometimes. When you were talking about how in the worst case scenario we have on-call contractors, do you know if our contracts, we keep in front of them early enough that for instance, during Snowmageddon, we kind of got into that a little bit on the late side, so we didn't have very many choices of contractors. As other people have not had the farsightedness of this agency, have we been able to get up on the priority list for some of those other contractors now?
President May, Commissioner Goldthorpe, we've already been reaching out to our contractors. I've already had 2 responses of their pricing that we can use for our, this year's service agreement. So we're well on our way to already get those contracts in place. If you know of any other contracts that are willing to join our cause, send them my way, and I'd be more than happy to talk with them and get them on our contract.
Oh, I just remember there was myself, there was Meridian's mayor, and I think Paul Daigle. We were the ones knocking the doors during Snowmageddon. And it was tough pickings.
Madam President? Thank you, Lloyd, for your presentation. What's the plan and strategy to deploy the mini sweeper for snow events? I would think that would need a different priority list because it's different pathways, and are we prioritizing certain sidewalk segments, and what are they?
President May, Commissioner Pickering, we are still continuing to figure out how that's going to fit into our plowing. We do have currently what it sweeps for its walkway or bike lanes, and it's going to be kind of a learn as we go on that piece of equipment, as we put on the attachments, how far it can go before it needs to be refilled, and how that route would look. But we are in discussion how that's going to look.
That's great. I would just urge you to refer back to the MIG report, because they did have some, highlighted some priorities, and again, they prioritized our sidewalk clearing as a higher priority from an ADA perspective. So I just want to make sure whatever it is, when you're looking at those different routes and offloading and whatever, that, you're still in line with MIG's recommendations for us.
Good. Perfect. Other comments or questions? Commissioner McKinney?
Madam President, thank you. Lloyd, thank you for all of this information. Just one question on the personnel issues you discussed a few minutes ago. You indicated that you have 8 new supervisors and 12 new operators. Does that represent a significantly higher than normal turnover? Do we normally have, in a normal year, what do we have as far as new personnel in our winter operations?
President May, Commissioner McKinney, it's a little above normal, especially for the new supervisors, as we have had promotions and movements for that. But we have a great training program in place that we're going to have them fully up to our consistency basis that we need for their training.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
We're eager to hire more individuals and get even more new people on.
So are there open positions, or how many additional positions do you have that aren't filled at this point?
I believe we currently, just in maintenance, and not all of them are winter operation positions, but I think in maintenance alone, we have about 29 open vacancies.
Okay. And any idea about approximately how many of those would be in winter maintenance?
The majority?
25.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the majority are in winter maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of those are the USTIC, the new USTIC yard operators.
Okay.
They opened a lot of new positions with the USTIC crew. So as we've been building the maps, we do know that we've got some gaps that we've had to fill that would ordinarily go to GEOs. Lloyd mentioned also some of the backup plan if we need to bring our ready reserves, folks that have the background, who had been in the maintenance side, who are promoted into other positions throughout ACHD. So we have that as a backup plan. And then we do have supervisors that we don't usually put into the trucks that are going to be called on also to make sure that all the routes are going to be fully filled. But yeah, as we continue to grow, and we're seeing huge benefits already from the new pay structure that you've approved in the budget. So we do appreciate that. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of those empty positions filled in the next month.
So approximately how many people do we have that fall into that category as, bring them in, fill the gaps on a contingency basis? People that have the training that aren't necessarily in those positions now. How many people are we talking about?
You're talking from the other departments?
Yes.
We're still putting that list together. I'm thinking there's roughly maybe a dozen.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
I like that we have that ready reserve contingency that we can tap into. That's going to come in handy. Very, very good. Any other comments or questions? No? Thank you, Lloyd. We appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here. All right. FY 2024-2028. Wow. Integrated 5-year work plan. It's wow, 2028. Welcome, Christy. With my navigator.
Oh, yes, look at this calendar. We might have a meeting.
Thank you. We like to be very colorful in our department.
Yes, so many pastels.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Easter time.
It does kind of look like, yeah. Springtime. Oh, yeah, no, I know, I was waiting. Pass them on. All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Christy Inselman, Planning and Programming Supervisor. I'm here to present to you on the kickoff for the 24-28 Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. I just passed out some calendars. We'll talk more about that as I get through into the presentation. But I do want to start by introducing the designer of said calendar. We have brought on Margaret Zellis. We stole her from the Development Technical Services Department, although technically we brought her back. She actually started as an intern in our department. And so she will be my right-hand gal on the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. You'll see a lot of her moving forward as well. Very good. Thank you. So you can thank her for the lovely calendar that we put together for you. So the purpose of today's presentation is to give you, to review with the commission integrated 5-year work plan process. It's been a little minute since we've been before you. Also how projects are selected, the planning framework that goes into that, the overall process in general. We also want to take this opportunity to give the commission an update on the commission directed changes that occurred at the end of the last adoption, where we spent a lot of time together, which I appreciated very much, as well as review of our development schedule for this next iteration. We like to go back and start at the beginning and go forward. So what is Integrated 5-Year Work Plan? It is a tool that integrates the construction and maintenance programs into one place. It implements our long-range plans, so our neighborhood plan, CIP, bike master plan. It's also an outward-facing document that informs the public and our partner agencies about what our current and future plans are for development and construction in the area. It creates that necessary layer of transparency for all of our planned activities in the capital budget, and it's a vital tool that helps to coordinate both internally and externally. So this is a review of our planning framework. 5-year work plan is not created in a vacuum alone. It's a review of our planning, it shows how our partner agencies foundational documents and adopted plans play an important role in feeding into and informing the integrated 5-year work plan. Selecting projects is a multi-layered process. We get projects from a variety of places, our existing adopted plans, partner and public agency requests, commission requests, as well as an application process to request those things. The projects are compiled and filtered through our industry-leading prioritization process. This process was enhanced over the past year to be even more aligned with best practices and includes another layer of transparency to the public and our partner agencies. Together with that prioritization and programming of projects, we create the integrated 5-year work plan we know and love today. So putting all of that together, this slide kind of shows it's a flow chart of the many steps that are involved in the development and creation of the integrated 5-year work plan each year. From extensive public outreach, project scoping, prioritization, programming with an eye to geographic equity, available funding, allocation methodology. It's easy to see the many facets that are involved in that year-long process of a very comprehensive plan at the end. And then I'd like to go into the update of where we are with the work sessions that we had at the end of last year. So this first slide has 2 components. The first one is the projects that were completed in fiscal year 22 and those that are active and will be completed in fiscal year 23. So we have those 5 projects. So the Mystic Cove and Star projects are completed. The Eagle Road and Ranch Drive, Washington Street, and Valley Heights head crossing, those will be starting construction here this year and will be completed shortly. And then projects that we scoped in fiscal year 22, those were ones we had not looked at before, that we included them in our scoping process. So we now have more information and costs associated with those. So those we will be adding into this next update. So you'll see those 4 projects come in.
Christy?
Yes, sir.
Madam President, when we approved the budget in this year, there was some additional funding put in for basically commission projects. When do you want our input to you for that?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, are we talking about fiscal year 23?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought he was jumping in on that conversation. I think we have already got projects and the funding. Sorry, I'm talking about 24. My mind
I know we got the input on the funding, just I didn't know we'd done anything on the projects.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, so we're going to have various different opportunities for commission involvement to add those projects. We are going to have a specific work session in January, and Christy's going to go, we can talk a little bit more about that. And we're also opening up kind of this open call for projects starting here pretty soon. So at any time the commission has input, you can certainly provide that to us. But our plan was to have that kind of formal work session in January, because we would have then input from the cities, input from the public, and bring it all together and do it at that point.
Okay, just I know that at the very least, some of the things that we request are going to have to be scoped first. I learned that last year.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Workshops. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So projects that we have concepts that are starting in fiscal year 23. So we've got the Linden Street project, Warm Springs that we've talked about a couple times today. We also have the Mitchell Street sidewalk. We actually wrapped in, that's not one that the Mitchell Street wasn't one that the commission asked for, but the Arabian Street terminus was, and we actually, looking at those 2 projects, it made sense to wrap those together into one concept. It'd be a little more cohesive and bigger outreach to the school that's there. And then the Osage Street, that one has potential incorporation into the Reconnecting Communities grant. I swear they make those words a little bit more challenging to say. Mr. Goldthorpe.
Christy, you might want to let Cynthia Rasevich in our Development Technical Services Department know about the Mitchell Street site. That was her baby.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that is one we're going to start. That one is not starting immediately.
Right.
That one will be like a mid-year start. We definitely will reach out and have those conversations for sure. So a total of 6 projects have been added. The 2 there at the bottom were added projects as part of this work session to the 22-26 and will remain with this next update. And here's kind of a snapshot. Obviously, I gave you guys a calendar today that has a lot more dates in it than what this snapshot shows you. But this one, I wanted to just highlight some of those key dates throughout the process and ones that are coming up here shortly. So this first one is we're holding a meeting with all of our partner agencies. This is also something that came out of that prioritization process that we did with additional outreach with our partner agencies. So we're holding a kickoff meeting here at ACHD on November 16th to start those conversations with them. That's also going to open the comment period or the project request period. Previously, we had done around 2 to 3 weeks outreach to the public for project requests during the integrated 5-year work plan process. This year, we're going all out. We're going 3 months where we're going to have both our partner and our public have the opportunity to submit project requests during that 3-month period. In the middle of that, we're going to come to the commission for your requests to get what projects you would like to be identified either through the scoping efforts or to be included in the 5-year work plan. And we're going to be sharing the wonderful part about aligning all of this with the stars is so that we can share with the commission, with our partner agencies, what we're hearing from the public. And our wonderful communications department has a new platform that we'll be able to utilize for this public outreach, where similar to almost some of our concepts where people could pull up a map and drop a pin in an area they'd love to see, we're going to utilize that same thing, where they're going to be able to go in an entire map of Ada County where they're saying they've got sidewalk gaps or crossings or roadway improvements, whatever it is, they'll have that opportunity. And it's a great tool for us to combine all of that, communicate to our partners, communicate to you, so we get a more cohesive list of our project requests.
Christy, I like that 3 months.
We want to make sure
that was one of those hiccups, that short
Yep.
amount of time there.
Yep.
So I really appreciate the responsiveness to the feedback that we got. I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. So it's not only expanded that time period for the public, it's expanded that time period for our partner agencies as well. Yeah. Last iteration, we had expanded to like 2.5 months, and now we're going out even more to 3 months, especially since we're going to be sharing information we're getting like real time from the public.
A lot of opportunity for them to interact. And
absolutely.
Very good.
And
Very good.
the other just key dates, so I threw some budget dates on there as well as integrated 5-year work plan dates. So we would target initial release of a draft plan in July 19th with adoption the 27th for the integrated 5-year work plan. But that calendar you have has a lot more that we're going to come and talk to you about as well.
Thanks, Madam President. Christy, as part of the communication and partner outreach, are you going to send any type of notification or correspondence to our neighborhood associations? And like, what does that look like exactly?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickett, absolutely. So because of this larger outreach, we have that information already. We will reach out to all of the neighborhood groups across Ada County. We will look to also coordinate some meetings where we go to the neighborhood groups and have those conversations to discuss how the 5-year work plan works, how to submit a request, where their concerns are for that area. We're also going to have meetings with our advisory groups to do that, as well as the normal, social media outreach that we're going to do. We've also talked internally about some other outreach efforts we can do just to get the word out that we want to hear from you. So absolutely, we will be reaching out to them.
That sounds great. And I'll, if it works out, I'd love to be involved with my neighborhood associations that fall within my district. So when you do reach out, could you CC me and hopefully because I'd love to listen in and hear what their responses are as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanson.
Madam President and Christy, thanks. This is great. Every year it just gets better and better. So
we're trying this.
And one of the things you haven't pointed out, but it's this thing that I steer people to all the time when they say, oh, well, this needs to be done. I said, okay, open your computer, get on the online map. Now let's zoom in. Is there something that's already identified on there? Tell me, whether you think the way in which it's described is adequate to meet your concern. And so it's really a useful tool, and I'm sure in the outreach it's like, hey, chances are something's already on in the system. It may only have a future construction date, so it's not in the 5-year plan for construction yet, but it's there. How have we described it? Does it get to what you need or your concerns? And then they can work with that. We're just constantly enhancing that as an example. I think that's fantastic. The other is that, and I think Mr. Mooney brought this up too, is if there's something and they're asking for something and you're aware that some policy at ACHD says we can't do that or it makes it problematic, that to me is a red flag for the policymakers that says, okay, here's something that's a disconnect. The public wants this, they have a concern about this, our policy says this. It's not your job to change the policy, but it is to bring it to our attention. So to run it up the flagpole so that we deal with it. We don't go on down year after year after year saying, no, sorry, we can't do that because we don't. And we experience that on Rose Hill. We don't do traffic calming on arterials. Well, you know, in the context of Rose Hill, in the context of a lot of roads, traffic calming is appropriate. So we understand there's policy issues that we'll run into. I'm just asking that we run them up so that the policymakers can grapple with them and say yes or no, or let's amend it.
Yeah, made aware of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, absolutely. We have, again, it's not reflected here, but we're going to come back to you guys in January. We're going to come back to you again after the period has closed to kind of recap what we've heard. We're going to come back to you multiple times on what we heard from the public. Yes, absolutely.
Good. Thank you, Christy.
And then just moving forward for next steps, like I said, we have that partner agency kickoff meeting on the 16th, which will then open the public request or project request November 16th through the 15th. We'll be back to you guys on the 11th, and Margaret will be back on February 8th to do the annual report with you guys. And I will stand for any additional questions.
Great update as always. Thank you very much, Christy. Any other comments or questions?
Thanks, Madam President. Christy, so I just want to make sure I'm tracking everything because Tom was working on that prioritization effort, right? And making sure, are we prioritizing the right thing? How can we make it simpler, right? So how are you working together as it relates to this kickoff plan?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, yes. So we have that prioritization we came and spoke to you about, I think it was a month or so ago, on our enhanced prioritization methodology. So that will be applied for all of those projects that we have received, that we have enough information that we can do that in. So that's what, there's going to be a little bit of a gap. We're going to come to you, here's what we heard from everybody, here's the projects. That process will take a couple months to implement, because it's a lot of projects that we have to put through that process. Gotcha. There's also on your calendar another meeting we're going to come back to you where we've basically what the results of that prioritization were. It's we're going to include all of the neighborhood plan projects. We're going to include everything we heard from you, from the public, from our partner agencies, and you're going to get this gigantic list of projects and how that kind of fell out with our prioritization methodology. So absolutely, we're going to come back to you with that. It's just, it takes time and maybe some tears to get it through that process.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christy. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Margaret. Arbor Valley Neighborhood Transportation Plan pre-adoption presentation. Welcome, Edinson.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Edison Bautista, ACHD Senior Transportation Planner. In today's work session, staff would like to provide an update on the Arbor Valley Neighborhood Transportation Plan, including a summary of the public involvement and the recommended project list. This work session is information briefing only, so no decision is required from the Commission at this time. We'll be back in front of the Commission for adoption consideration on October 26, 2022. The concept of neighborhood plan started back in 2012 with the development and adoption of the Boise Central Bench. Since then, staff has worked diligently in the development of neighborhood plans throughout Ada County. With the Arbor Valley planning area, we're completing the first iteration of those neighborhood plans. In this slide, we wanted to showcase how we broke down the county into its respective neighborhood planning areas. In total, we have 15 planning areas. In addition to the planning areas, we want to present ACHD level of completion for all neighborhood plans. Of the 1,272 projects identified, 301 projects have been completed, and 322 projects are programmed in adopted integrated fire work plan 2022-2026. Combining both numbers, these represent a level of completion of 49%. In this graph, we reflect that once these neighborhood plans are adopted, there is an ongoing process to evaluate and construct the identified projects. In this slide, we wanted to display the Barber Valley planning area, including the key destinations in that area. The Barber Valley Neighborhood Plan aims to achieve the following goals. Identify and map key destination as it pertains on planning areas. Through a robust public outreach process, identify the needs for connectivity, transit, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities to gather a general consensus of community recommendations. Develop a plan that communicates existing conditions and needs, as well as convey proposal of projects to both ACHD and the public. Through analysis, technical review, and public outreach, define, prioritize, and rank projects that address the needs identified. And additionally, we will identify existing gaps in the road, sidewalk, and pedestrian and bicycle network. Through this process, we aim to brand the neighborhood plans to ensure recognition throughout the community of these planning efforts, and ACHD continual effort and commitment to bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Through this neighborhood plan process, staff engaged with the community to collect input and identify transportation improvements within the Barber Valley area. At the start of the project, staff met with the community groups and key stakeholders to inform them about the project, collect initial input, and address any questions regarding the planning process. Following this meeting, staff coordinated with the Boise School District to participate in the Dallas Harris Elementary School Boundary Committee. Staff conducted 2 virtual public engagement efforts. The first effort consisted of the release of an interactive tool that allowed the public to submit comments regarding the area of concern. With the information collected, we identified transportation projects to be included in the draft recommended project list. This recommended list was later released once more in the second public outreach to share the recommended project and our findings. In addition, collect additional public input and identify the public priorities with respect to each of the projects identified. In total, we received 600 comments, with 333 comments provided in the first effort and 267 in the second effort. Some of the comments we heard included the need for more walkability and bikeability along Warm Springs, crossing opportunity at different locations along Warm Springs, the need of sidewalks along Barber Drive, traffic concerns at Eckerd Road north of the bridge, better access to the Greenbelt, just to mention some of the comments we heard. In this slide, we present the recommended project list. As you can see, in this slide, we present a map with the recommended project list. As you can see, in this map, we focus on the pedestrian network. In the light blue, we show the existing pedestrian sidewalk, and in dotted blue, the projects identified. With a comprehensive review of the existing condition and the public outreach data collected, a recommended project list was developed. This recommended project list was included as part of the staff report. This project list consists of 14 projects, where 3 are bicycle projects, 5 pedestrian projects, 4 crossing projects, and 2 roadway improvement projects. In addition to these projects, we added a new section to the neighborhood plans called the Additional Consideration section. This section allows staff to recognize locations of high public interest that are outside ACHD jurisdiction, outside the planning area, and locations that need further coordination with partner agencies. Some of these locations included the Highway 21 and Warm Spring Avenue, Eckerd Road Bridge improvements, and Eckerd Road parking area. The draft recommended project list included projects like bicycle improvements on Barber Drive between Hickory Way and Barber Lane, Warm Spring Avenue between Wings on Drive and Barber Drive, pedestrian improvements on Barber Drive, Council Spring Road, Warm Spring Avenue, and crossing improvements are Warm Spring Avenue and Shakespeare Way, and Warm Spring Avenue and Maynard Ave. As next steps, staff will release the draft plan on October 12th for public comments until October 26th, when we'll come back in front of the commission for adoption consideration. And with this, I conclude my presentation. I'll stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Edson. Nice job. Appreciate the update. Commissioners, questions or comments? Commissioner Pickering.
Thanks, Madam President. Edson, so, in light of Mr. Mooney's testimony earlier today, is there anything in this plan that talks about, pursuing a waiver of policy as it relates to that section of Warm Springs so that we can have traffic calming on that arterial?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, we recognize the public's interest in the feedback that we received throughout this effort, but as it stands right now, the neighborhood plans, it's a project identification tool, which doesn't address those questions or concerns, and those are addressed with a different plan, with different tools like the Master Street Map. That conversation we'll have it later on this year. So at this point, we wanted to focus on the project identification side with the neighborhood plans.
I thank you for that answer. I'm just wondering though, because it does seem though that this could and should lead to projects that would fit within this plan if that waiver was granted or the policy was changed so that the community could see those improvements. So, obviously I'm just one commissioner out of 5, but I would think that those types of tensions, which of course, again, you talk about different tools, I think it directly relates to this work. And I think we really should be elevating those conflicts because I think that is a high priority and a pain point that a lot of our communities are feeling and continue to feel. And we're not going to really be able to get to the root cause of these issues unless the commission hears them and has the opportunity to weigh in and change them. If that's so the impression of the commission.
Madam President, members of the commission, for the record, Justin Lucas, Deputy Director of Planning and Project Management here at the Highway District. Commissioners, we're certainly sensitive to the requests that have come forward related to Warm Springs. This plan does address the community's specific requests related to projects that they would like to see in increased connectivity and safety along that corridor. I think where staff, when it comes to what we bring to you within the plan, the commission, through adopted policy, has a mechanism to modify the master street map. That policy does not reference the neighborhood planning process as a mechanism to do that. So staff is working within the framework that has been provided to us through ACHD policy. Certainly, I understand there may be a desire to modify that, and I'm sensitive to that. But we are, as promised, bringing back that issue specifically to the commission through the master street map process in relatively short order. And in no way have we tried to minimize the feedback from the public related to that issue through the planning process. I think it's actually the opposite. I think, as you saw from Mr. Mooney, we've been absolutely communicating with him and other neighborhood leaders and citizens on these topics throughout the entire process, and they will have their opportunity to come forward and present to you those desires that they may have. So I'm hopeful that all those conversations will continue, and we anticipate that they will, and we will certainly at the staff level be providing alternatives for the commission to carry forward with this plan and with the master street map.
I appreciate that, Justin, but I just think though, even as we just got through the master street map work and all of that outreach, none of those types of nuances, we have to bring that to you, it seems like, when I was talking about the tension of those policies with Garden City. And we're still talking about, just how the master street map, you guys have conversations with the city partners, but ultimately no policy changes ever get brought up to the commission in terms of moving forward on those requests by the city. And the director said, I'll bring it right back. Well, we'll talk about this, but yet it hasn't been brought up. So I'm just curious, does it take 3 commissioners to just say, we're gonna bring this up as a formal agenda item, that we're gonna pinpoint this policy? Is that what it's gonna take? Or this whole process is really confusing, even as someone that's a commissioner, and yet we've got stellar community leaders that have more understanding of our policies than I think majority of the population in Ada County. And yet we still can't move fast enough to support their vision and the city's vision. So I totally agree. You're communicating, that's great. But my big issue is there's too many of these moving parts that we say that we're going to address, but we never actually address them. And then 2, it's just too slow. We could waive a policy and it could be done today. In my mind, it should be. And we don't have to deal with this anymore. So I'm tired of, let's work through this plan or this plan, because we do it and then nothing changes. So give me direction on what would make the most sense. It would be the speediest way. And of course, again, I'm just one vote. I understand that. But what is the easiest path forward to either waive the policy or change the policy altogether, and give us, lay it out in the public sphere. What is that plan of action that'll work with staff to have that conversation?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, thanks for the question. I assume you're specifically referencing the master street map.
Yes.
And the change on Warm Springs Avenue from an arterial collector.
That's one perfect example.
I just want to make sure I'm answering
yes.
the right question.
Yes, you're doing great.
So staff has been working on the master street map update. We update it on a regular basis. Through that process, we have brought to you all of the conversations we've had. And to be honest, with the city of Boise specifically and some of their requests, there was some conflicting information we received from city staff related to the original crest versus subsequent meetings with them, and then they changed their requests. So there was a little bit of confusion there. But to answer your question, when the master street map is brought forward to the commission for adoption, staff will be bringing forward recommendations that are consistent with existing commission policies and the staff recommendation. If the commission has a different vision and wants to pursue a different categorization or typology on a specific roadway, through that process at the adoption hearing, the commission can direct staff to do so. So you will have an opportunity directly at that point to move forward on a change to the map that you choose to move forward on. Staff presents this in a framework of the policies that exist, and the commission then can choose to move forward how they choose to. This is not the first time this has happened. There's been other changes to the master street map that have happened in a similar manner. And on this one, to this point, we have at the staff level, we have not seen a majority of the commission direct us to do so. And at that point, when that happens, we will make the change as requested by a majority of the commission.
Thank you, Justin. And I just want to make sure that's really helpful. Thank you, first of all. But second of all, when I brought up how so many of Garden City's requests didn't meet policy, right? The staff response to that was, we'll continue to have conversations and it's good to go. So what I'm hearing is at the adoption hearing, we could make those changes, but then with staff previous conversations, it was like, that's a policy change, that's a different conversation. So I'm hearing multiple things. So is this just one way that we do it, or is this just your preferred way, Justin?
Well, in the framework of the policy related to the master street map, the commission adopted a purpose and amendment procedures document that's in ACHD policy that describes the different mechanisms under which the master street map can or should be changed. And that's what we work with in that framework. But the commission, like with other policies similar to that, has chosen to deviate from that and provide additional direction to staff based on certain findings the commission may make. And we're willing and able to make those changes. we at the staff, we bring forward recommendations based on those policies and our professional expertise and judgment. Oftentimes, or it's probably not often, but sometimes, the commissioners may see it a different way. It's difficult for staff to anticipate what a majority of the commission may choose to want to do or not want to do. So we bring forward what we have, and then we seek that direction. And on certain issues, it does take a public hearing and public input for the commissioners to finally decide how they want to move forward. And until that occurs, it's
So is it easier, Justin, to have a line item on the agenda where we're talking about one policy? Because I'm very sensitive to your point about it's hard to know what the commission stands for in terms of some of these policy decisions. I totally understand that. So what is going to make it easier to compartmentalize these conversations so that we can ultimately see changes as fast as possible, if that's the will of the majority of the commission?
I know Steve wants to weigh in. I can just speak specifically to the master street map. It's staff's preference always, if you have ideas for changes to the master street map, to deal with those through the master street map process. I don't think it needs to be a separate specific line item on any specific street. I believe there's a forum to have those discussions through the work session, which is scheduled for November 9th, and then the following adoption hearing, which will be scheduled thereafter. I think there's going to be a clear format for those discussions to occur.
And that was my understanding, that on November 9th, that we were going to address all the feedback and concerns, et cetera, about the policy with our master street map. Just, a few weeks away. So, Mr. Price.
Madam President, Commissioner Steve Price, General Counsel, to Commissioner Pickering, to answer your question, and I know where you're going and you're right on. The commission, through the commission president, can put any item on the agenda at, frankly, any time, as long as it meets the open meeting law. If the commission wants to be very narrow in a policy within a plan or otherwise, you can have a work session and have an action item, make a decision, or you can put it on the agenda, very specific. And so the idea of, we've typically done this within the framework of the documents that we would need to amend. But if the commission has a specific policy issue that they want addressed quickly, you get it on the agenda, you decide, and you have a vote. That makes this organization completely different than ITD and other entities. And it's something that I've been resistant to change. I want to make sure that the commission has that flexibility at any time that they feel that there's a need. And we can get things done a lot quicker than other places. So that is that. There is a more formal process that's within the commission protocols on policy changes. But that is more of a kind of a new policy as opposed to editing existing policies. But really, staff serves at the pleasure of the commission. And if the commission wants to have that on the agenda, we can get it done.
Thanks, Steve.
Madam President? Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Thanks, Edinson. I think this is good work. I would agree that we need to have, as part of this, a very specific request rather than, the issue that Commissioner Pickering pointed out, which is we've got to move on. I would just waive the limitations, any limitations that the policies impose on applying traffic calming on an arterial. And I note on the existing conditions, it lists arterial 5.2 miles, and that's all Warm Springs. It's entirely Warm Springs. Then on the pedestrian network, it refers to it as 4.4 miles of a minor arterial. So the request that the neighborhood's asking for traffic calming, and which is actually related to virtually all of the projects that are identified, be incorporated into the scoping and design of these projects, are on a minor arterial. We waived it with respect to Rose Hill, which is still classified as it's a little confusing because on the map it's classified as a neighborhood residential arterial. It's not called a minor arterial, but maybe that's a larger group subset. But presumably there's a limitation on providing traffic calming analysis on a minor arterial, and I would ask that we waive that with respect to this arterial so that you can scope within these projects, the number one request that the neighborhood is asking about, and that I've been asking for 10 years, which is traffic calming, and frankly, I believe has been the fundamental request of the neighborhood as it's grown since 1996, when it ceased to be a state highway. And that is, treat this as a neighborhood street. And as Mr. Mooney pointed out, I don't care what you call it, but if policies are going to get in the way with respect to this, we have the ability to waive that. And I would ask the commission that we include, before adopting this, a waiver of that policy so that we can incorporate traffic calming on the arterial that is affected by these projects. Because that is such a huge concern, and it gets repeated over and over again. That's the whole reason why the neighborhood came in over and over again asking for 3-lane designation. And we said, well, our master street map calls it 5 lanes. It's a 5-lane arterial. We voted twice, one for one segment, one for another segment, to say, no, it's a 3-lane, which I presume that means it's a minor arterial. And a difference between a minor arterial and a major collector, I don't know what. It's pretty close, but it's a neighborhood street, whatever we call it. So they've been asking and asking and asking. And so I want to make sure, with respect to this, that we waive any limitations in our policy as part of adopting this plan to applying traffic calming on the 4.4 miles, actually the 5.2 miles of Warm Springs. I would ask that that be done, and I hope that the commissioners would be willing to do that. Commissioner Goldthorpe, Commissioner McKinney, Commissioner May would be willing to do that. And then in addition to us pursue separately the fact that this, Rose Hill, and other issues have highlighted weaknesses in the way in which our policies are being applied, and whether we need to amend those policies, which I believe we do. And then we have a full discussion of that. But I would like to move forward on the adoption of this on the 26th, which is in 2 weeks. Then I would ask that we incorporate that request for waiver to be part of this plan.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney, then I have a comment.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on this. The issues about the master street map and waiver versus changing the policy, those are questions I think we need to consider on their own merits and independently of this Barber Valley plan. Because even though this plan doesn't deal with those issues, that's precisely why we shouldn't start trying to superimpose additional things on top of it and allow it to, go forward as it is. Though I do believe it would be fair to say that it's my sense that the commission very likely, I would be in favor of us requesting to have a workshop aimed toward eventually making a decision, taking an action on it. But with respect to that policy, the master street map, and so on, we don't necessarily have to, I think it would be kind of hasty to suddenly add that item to this Barber Valley plan, especially since this has already been in the works for some time. Let's let it go through. The question of, are we going to reclassify Warm Springs? Are we going to do traffic calming? Are we going to waive a policy or change our policy? Those are perfectly valid questions. Let's consider those separately on their own and not try to superimpose that on this Barber Valley plan. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that issue.
I do agree that we need to have the work session and we need to address this policy because it does keep coming up. However, today is a work session, so we have not agendized. This is not an action item, so we can't take a motion and vote on that today. But
we can certainly request.
And I thought maybe there was some confusion there, but then you mentioned
I just want to make it clear.
Yeah, the adoption hearing. So yeah.
As the commissioner represents that area, I'm not comfortable moving on the adoption of this plan as it is written without clarity from this commission that we're prepared to waive the limitations on applying traffic calming designs, because we're going to run into the same obstacles we've had in the past. They've been asking for this for over a decade. We need to address it. And then separately, deal with, as you pointed out, the issues related to the policy. If we're running into issues where we keep having to waive policy, there's clearly flaws in the policy that need to be fixed so that we don't do that. And that's the policy with respect to the master street map, but it's also policy with respect to access management and speed management. So there's a number of policies that are implicated on this, but with respect that they are preventing us from incorporating traffic calming analyses and scoping and design in all of these projects, I want those policies waived in the interim so we can move forward with the plan, because that's what we've been asking for. We've already missed the opportunity for the last 10 plus years to get the developer to help pay for those. We haven't. So now the rest of the public in Ada County has to help pay for those, which is unfortunate because we should have had them in place much earlier so the developer could help pay for those.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
just to clear up my mind, the opportunity that we will have to determine the future of Warm Springs, this stretch of Warm Springs, will come on the 9th of November. Is that correct?
The adoption hearing for this.
I wasn't talking about this.
Well, that's the one we should be talking about, and I thought.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
This is the one that's before us right now.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, November 9th is the follow-up on the master street map.
Right.
So that's listed as a work session. If the commission during that work session is interested in providing guidance, we can list it as an action item. The commission could, in a work session format, be kind of making giving direction to staff on exactly what you want the master street map to show, and then we could bring it back for final adoption after that. So
I would request that you do that.
Yeah, that would be a mechanism to deal with this as rapidly, I think, as you would like.
And I think that's where we started with your question about the master street map with
Right.
November 9th.
Right.
And
Well,
talking and specific to Commissioner Hansen's request, this adoption hearing on the 26th. So you were asking for something to be done prior to us adopting this.
I'm not comfortable moving forward and would advise not moving forward with this until, if the commission doesn't want to waive the obstacles. We did waive those obstacles when we adopted from 5 to 3 lanes. This commission voted for that in 2 different votes, one for one segment, one for another segment. So we voted for that. We basically waived policy limitations on the designation of that road. Now there's still this title that is associated with it as arterial, which under those policies are restricting its application for traffic calming. So we did that because on Rose Hill, we moved forward with traffic calming on Rose Hill and probably some other areas, but we need to move forward with this. And I would ask the commission to say, if you want to vote on it, let's just waive those limitations with respect to this.
And Madam President, members of the commission, as was stated, this is a work session. We were bringing forward the draft plan for your consideration prior to releasing it to the public, to then bring it back to you for adoption and a full public hearing where members of the public have an opportunity to comment. And I'm sure members of the public will be here to have an opportunity to comment on the Warm Springs corridor and the other items that have previously come up. When it comes to modifying the neighborhood plan, to waive a policy, I'm not sure what policy we would be waiving, to be honest with you. The neighborhood plan is.
Oh, okay. A couple minute break here.
I have a question for Mr. Price, though, in the meantime. I do have a question for Mr. Price. It's not related to this, but as you will recall, I believe it was probably about 8 months ago, we had a work session on the master street map, and I brought in a list and handed out to the commission and said, these are the streets I'd like to have adjusted. And it was ruled inappropriate because our policies did not allow for commissioners to ask for changes in the master street map. But there were only, the request was through development or through a major comprehensive planning process of the city. Those are the only two ways in which you could raise changes to the master street map. So it was ruled unavailable. So I had to go to the city and ask, and they said, oh yeah, these are the same ones we've been talking to you about. But I was told, and I believe you may have told me, it is illegal under our policy for a commissioner to ask for changes to the master street map. And so it didn't move forward.
I absolutely disagree. It wouldn't have been me who suggested that. Most certainly, any commissioner has the ability to bring a proposal on any policy, any plan, and ask for an amendment. I would never ever say anything different than that. And if you got a date, I'll go back and look at the tape. That's absolutely not true, and you have the capability of doing that. The only thing you have to do is any policy proposal is make sure that it meets the open meeting law requirements. That's it. Now, whether the commission agrees with you or not, that's a completely different issue. And the decision that they've made in the past, that's a completely different issue.
I have a question for Commissioner Hanson. I do remember, was it when we were sitting down at the table? And was your request to waive policy, or were you talking about the specific items on their
specific
letter?
items on this, not the cities, but specific items on the map need to be changed. And I was told a commission couldn't ask for that. That under our policies, there's two ways: through development, and then through a major change in a comprehensive plan, and then a request from the planning agency. Those are the two ways. A commissioner couldn't initiate a change in the master street map. And so the discussion ended there. And it was like, okay, well.
My recall is that it was specific to, I think there were 17?
It's on.
Yeah, that you were speaking specifically to a letter that we had gotten, and I believe Karen Gallagher had signed it, and for some streets on there, and you were asking those to be included. And and correct me, Commissioner Pickering, I think you have some recall on that too. That change the specific streets we could not do, but it was not a request to look at the waiving the policy. That's my recollection of it. Go ahead.
Oh, I have a different thing, so why don't we?
Madam President, Commissioners, if I could make a recommendation, please. I've spoken to our planning and project leadership. Would you be comfortable with proceeding on with the master street map presentation in a work session as an action item on November 9th, but deferring your decisions on the Barber Valley thing to a date after that? That way, I believe you can accomplish everything that you've been talking about in a expeditious, concise manner moving forward. Now, if you think that's feasible, I want you all to know that this is going to delay the Barber Valley issue probably about a month and such to come back based on all the things we have going on. But I don't think it's that time critical based on the time frame that we're looking at. So my recommendation is, if you're so inclined, move forward on November 9th as scheduled. We will defer the Barber Valley presentation before we go out to the public for another time after that, and then you can have those discussions.
Talking about, Director Wong, putting it on as an action item on a work session?
Absolutely, on November 9th, action
so
item.
If it's
that
unlike
first,
today.
We will not do the 26th. Okay. We'll defer that to afterwards so that you have your opportunity to discuss and make your determinations as to how you'd like us to proceed.
Madam President, I don't have a problem with that. There's three things, actually. One is the Barber Valley plan. The second is the master street map. And it came before us. The city of Boise was one that asked for 17 things, and we said policy won't let us except for 4. And so obviously we would have to waive policy. And I asked that we approve all 17 of Boise City's requests. So it is my request again that on the 9th of November, when we meet, that we approve all 17 of Boise City's requests. That's the area I represent. I would encourage you to look at the cities in your area to see what their requests are so that they are approved and we can move forward with that. And that if that, the third element being, oh, well, there's a policy out here that says, you know, it's not part of a comprehensive plan or some requirement that we approve them, that we would have to waive that. And then the third step would have to take place down the road of actually changing the policy if we wanted to change it, or we could just continue to proceed with waiving each time the policy gets in the way of moving forward. So I would state, I'm fine with moving, you know, we'll address the Barber Valley clarity, but I will strongly support and will ask again that we approve all 17 of Boise's changes to the master street map that they submitted earlier this year, and that our staff recommended only 4 of those. So I would support all 17 of those, and I would encourage my fellow commissioners to look at those. If you have questions, ask Boise City. The request should be approved. It's the cities. It's very, very much a land use issue that we should be approving the cities, and if and not hide behind the language of our policy if that's getting in the way of approving what the city wants from its vision for the streets in its own jurisdiction.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering.
I just want to say I agree with that plan. I think that works really well. That's exactly what I was thinking. And then I just, not to add another layer to all this, but it makes me wonder, you know, why do we even have, I understand why we have certain arterials, right, are uneligible for traffic calming. I can understand the practicality around that, but I just don't think that type of mindset or policy is really relevant or nuanced and doesn't represent the nuances that our communities need. And so as a separate item, I'd like to explore that because I just don't think, I feel like that type of policy or mindset creates more problems than it solves potentially, in having those differential, like we only do it on collectors and then we don't do it on arterials, and instead having, we don't have that, in my opinion, we don't have that type of oh gosh, what's the word? I only had 4 hours of sleep last night, so whatever word it is, a threshold or distinction, because I think ultimately the right design for those street segments should carry out regardless of what policy tells us we should or shouldn't include traffic calming. So just my 2 cents that this kind of challenge illustrates that I don't think traffic calming should be on for one type of street.
Having that discussion on the policy
Yeah.
Initially would address that. So I think that conversation has to happen before we go into Part B.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, Madam President.
We're on the same page.
I would agree with doing exactly what the director just suggested.
Yeah,
think
I
I'm
agree.
getting head nods.
I agree also.
And we have to have that policy discussion first. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. That's it for today. Thank you for sticking with us. Appreciate it. Thanks for all the presentations. And then now we will turn to the backward.